Welcome, everyone, both here in the recording session and in our radio listening audience to our event this morning, in which we're celebrating several things. First, of course, it's my 82nd birthday today. And in addition, my publisher has arranged it so that my third poetry collection is being published by them today. And one of the reasons for this kind of pep talk session is to get people to buy the book. So also, in commemoration of all that, I'm going to be giving a poetry reading from this newly released collection of mine, the Kalidas verses. But before I do all that, I just want to mention something that has come up very unexpectedly, very sadly, but needs to be mentioned as that to which being dedicated. And I'll say a few words about that right now. Some of you here know, although it was always under the radar by our choice, that Leonard Cohen and I had a very close, very personal, and very mutually supportive relationship for the past 12 years. My 82nd birthday with all of you. This has been a very hard blow for me with Leonard's passing, and I don't want to get into that in too much detail, but suffice it to say, what I'd like to do first is to recite the traditional mourner's Kaddish, the prayer for the dead, in memory of him and his passing. I'm sure his family will, thank you. I'm sure his family will recite the Kaddish for him at the gravesite and so forth, but I am going to do it every morning for the next year. It's traditional to undertake such a thing for a relative, a dear friend, and so forth. And in light of that, I will recite the traditional Hebrew Kaddish now. In memory of the passing of my dearly beloved friend and brother, Eliezer HaKohain, Leonard Cohen, I recite the Kaddish. Yiskedal v'yiskadash shmei rabo, bo mo divro chirusei v'yamlech machusei, v'chaychonav yom echonav chayei l'chol beis Yisrael, bagalo uvizman korev yimro amen. Yehi shmei rabo mevarach le'olam omeil maya, Yisbarach v'yishtabach v'yispa'ah v'yisamam, v'yisnasei v'yisadar v'yisalei v'yisalau, shmei d'kutsha b'richu, le'olam mincha b'irachasa v'shirasa tushbechasa, v'nechemasa dameron b'omo v'imru amen. Yehi shlomo rabba min shemaya, v'chayinu leinu v'yakol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom v'marmov, hu ya'asei shalom, v'leinu v'yakol Yisrael v'imru amen. Again, at the last moment, because it just recently happened, I'm dedicating this entire event to the memory of Leonard Cohen. But let's get to the subjects of the event itself. And that is, of course, the celebration of my 82nd birthday, the publication at the same date, today, of my third poetry collection, the Kalidas verses, and then a reading from those Kalidas verses. In other events such as this, I've talked about my history as a poet. As you know, I'm 82 today. And I literally began writing poetry and did not stop when I was 10 years old. I began very seriously writing poetry and publishing it uh, when I was 14, and then very, very seriously publishing it when I was 18. So that I've been a working publishing poet for the past 60 years. This is different than people who say, I've been writing poetry since I was 5 years old, and they self-publish some book. They may have done that, but they haven't written a goddamn thing ever since. And beside which, what they wrote isn't, in my estimation, really poetry. I have consistently and steadily written poetry, especially in my adult years, and especially in my senior years, every day, seriously writing poetry. I write poetry not as self-expression. I want you to hear this. I write poetry not as self-expression. I don't give a damn about expressing myself. I don't give a damn about moving or improving or inspiring the reader. My poems are not meant to be instructive or emotional or polemic or self-revealing. My poems are intended to be meaningless, absolutely meaningless, as they come rolling out from the collective unconscious through me onto the page. Now, others may ask, what's the sense of that? Well, there is no sense if you think of poetry in this Hallmark greeting card way as being expressive of the poet and meaning to improve and enlighten the reader. If you think of poetry that way, then of course it makes no sense, my kind of poetry. But if you think of poetry as poetry, for me, the purpose of writing a poem is to write the poem. That's it. The sole purpose of the poem is itself. And really, in a poet such as myself, and I think a lot of poets now, young poets, who have independently come to this same way of writing, to express and come from the vast collective unconscious, to be written not by the poet, but to be written spontaneously by them, in there. By doing that, I think, stripped of all of its sentimentality, stripped of its emotion, stripped of its expressiveness and its usefulness and all that, stripped of all that, the poem stands in the pure form of a poem. That's difficult to express and difficult to describe. I'm thrilled to see it being done this way by so many young poets now. I'm not saying that they were moved by me. They're not at all. I began coming to this place of writing poetry independently of them, and them independently of me. It just so happens that we came to the same place, and I'm thrilled to be among them. All these years until now, I assiduously avoided any contact with literary people. I avoided any contact with any literary groups or schools of thought and so forth. I just sat there and did my thing as it was developing and coming out of me. It just so happens that a lot of other young people were doing the same thing. Thank God. It's a whole new world of poetry. And I must say some of them are doing it vastly better than I am. And I encourage those young people. And in fact, I've set up a whole special group on Facebook called Rats Alley Poets to encourage them to publish their work and to encourage them to keep going. So that's where my poetry is, and that's where it stands. As I've said elsewhere in other places, I write every poem I write with the intention of attacking and undoing meaning, of destroying the concept of meaning. The poet and the poem in this sense is useless. The poem is useless. It has no utility other than itself. Now, I know people will want to argue with me about that and say, oh, no, it has meaning. It has any meaning I want to put into it. Yeah, that may be so. But don't argue with me about how and why I'm writing the poem. I'm writing it to be meaningless. If you want to put meaning into it, that doesn't mean it's there. It means it's there for you, but the meaning isn't there intentionally by me. I hope I'm being clear about this and not too wordy. Over the course of these last 60 years in particular, I've published in a number of very prominent literary journals, and more so even now in my old age. Literary journals, both electronic and printed. And as you know, a couple of years ago, this wonderful boutique publisher of mine, Platypus Press in England, approached me to publish my complete written works in 4 volumes. And today celebrates the release of the 3rd of those 4 volumes. The volume today is, of course, the Kabbalah verses. The volume that will be released, the 4th volume, will be released sometime in the middle of next year and is to be called Shards of Glass. I am looking forward to that publication more than any of the others. More than any of the others, because what they want to do, the editors of Platypus Press, is put together a collection of my best poetry as they select it. That is a wonderful gift to me, and I think to the world. I'm incapable of doing that. It's almost impossible for me to reread my poems, let alone select the ones I think are best. But that's what it will be, an anthology of my best poems selected by the editors of Platypus Press and published as an anthology to be called Shards of Glass. These are editor-reviewed journals where the poet is either asked by or submits a poem to the editors of the journal, who then review it and decide whether to publish it or not. That's real publication. Getting a lot of your poems up on poetry blogs all over the internet, that's not being published. Being published in a literary journal that has standards and taste and is reviewed by the editors for publication, that's getting published. The same is true, I believe, of collections of poetry. I suppose for some people, self-publication is being published. It is not. It is not. Getting your book accepted and purchased and published by a legitimate publisher under contract with you. They buy the right to publish your book only after reviewing it. You don't have anything to say about it. You have no idea how many publishers have turned down my collections of poetry. That's true of every poet. T.S. Eliot, his work was not that well liked at first. The only reason I allowed myself to self-publish my very first collection was so that a legitimate publisher would catch wind of it and ask to republish it in a second edition. And that's what happened. I know this all sounds very snobbish, and you're asking yourself probably, well, why is he telling us all this? I'm telling you all this because that's where I'm at as a poet. Poetry is extremely important to me. Not my poetry, although of course it's important to me, but the institution of poetry. Not greeting card verses, but the institution of poetry is of enormous concern to me. God and poetry have helped me to survive to this 82nd year of my life. God and poetry. Hang on just 1 second. The present moment brings us to the present moment. To the publication today, this very day, of the third volume of collected poems, the Kabbalah verses, which I'd like to read from now. Some of the poems, not all of them. I'll read some of the poems from that. Then, during that, we'll take a break and then come back and finish the reading. But right now, let me ask, are there anybody want to make a comment about what or ask me a question about what I have said so far? Just raise your hand. If not, we'll get started with the reading of the Kalidas verses. We'll read for a while, then we'll take a break. Then I'll finish up with another 15 or 20 minutes of reading and questions at the end, and that will be it. Apropos of my comments before this reading, the preface that I wrote to the Kalidas verses says, "The poem has no more meaning than a spider web or a string quartet or a suspension bridge." And I think that summarizes the intention of my poetry and the dynamics of what I write. I go on to say in the preface, "My poetry carries no message, no point of view, either moral, social, political, existential, or otherwise. It's not intended to be agreed or disagreed with, understood or analyzed. It does not speak to popular beliefs, values, ideas, or consensus. If you react to a poem of mine with 'right,' 'so true,' or any other term of agreement, have failed the poem." Appropriately for the death of Leonard Cohen, I will tell you a story of our first meeting because it directly relates to this first poem I'm going to read from the Kalidas verses. Back in the early 1970s, I was very strongly on the spiritual path and have remained so ever since. And as I did and continue to do, I explored spirituality in exactly the way my guru, Swami Ramakrishna, Sri Ramakrishna did. I literally practiced every religion to see if they would each lead me to the same God. And of course they did. As part of that, I undertook to study Zen Buddhism. This was back in the early 1970s. And I knew from others that the greatest teacher, probably in the country, and certainly in the Los Angeles area, was Koizan Jashu Sakai, the Roshi, from Japan, an authentic teacher of authentic Zen. And he had the Cimarron Zen Center in Los Angeles and a beautiful large monastery on Mount Baldy. And so I went to him to study with him, because all of my study has always been person to person with a master. When I arrived at the Cimarron Zen Center for the first interview, one of the young Zen monks was assigned to me to talk to me about it and discuss it with me. And we were sitting in kind of a shoe area on a small sofa with a back door to the outside yard. And as we were talking, back in 1970, 72 or so, this really handsome, tall man, dressed all in black, came crashing through the back door, screen door, and stalked past us. And the Zen monk guiding me said to me breathlessly, "Do you know who that is?" And I said, "No." He said, "That's Leonard Cohen." Leonard at the time was becoming extremely well known as a writer and singer of music. I, of course, knew of him extremely well before that as a great literary figure. Leonard, before he learned to play the guitar, was looked upon as a really important poet and author, a literary poet and author. He became far better known as a writer and singer of folk music. So that was my introduction to Zen and to Leonard. I never saw him again after that, except, of course, the way any audience member would see him. Until many years later, in about, maybe 12 years ago. Well, exactly 12 years ago, 13 years ago. When I was teaching daily podcasts on mysticism, I received a contribution by check from one of the listeners, an anonymous contribution, signed Baldy Monk. And something in me, it was just amazing, something in me said, I think that's Leonard Cohen. Mount Baldy, where he lived for years with the Roshi both of us knew, and became a Zen monk. Mount Baldy, monk, Baldy monk. I thought, I think this is Leonard Cohen. I have no real reason for thinking so, just intuitively. And I wrote to the person and I said, thank you for your generous gift. By the way, this doesn't happen to be Leonard Cohen, does it? And I got back an email saying guilty as charged. And that began our 12-year, very close relationship by email. Where we both supported each other. And he supported me in ways I cannot even begin to talk about. And of course, during that time, he still was very close to Kyozan Joshua Sasakai, the Roshi I went to and that he had been going to for so long already. And he remained close to him. And in fact, I, in a certain way, remained close to that Roshi through Leonard. Now, all of this with Leonard was several years before he went on that monumental tour. He had been out of sight and out of mind for many years at the point he and I met. He was not the famous Leonard Cohen at that time. He was actually kind of forgotten. And after we had known each other for several years, according to him, largely by the influence of Roshi and myself and my teachings, I'll be honest with you, Leonard came back to life, as it were, as an artist, and decided to go on tour, the big tour that he did go on. In the early stages of that tour, however, he died. Roshi died. And that was an enormous blow to Leonard, and in a much smaller way to me. I had not been as close to Roshi as Leonard had been. Roshi, I think, was really Leonard's second father. I'm telling you all this because when Roshi died, I wrote the following poem in the Kalidas verses, A Walk in the Dark, in memory of Roshi, and, in effect, for Leonard at the time. I'll also point out that I said Kaddish for Roshi also, and told Leonard, and Leonard said Roshi would be delighted. He was charmed. Now I'm saying Kaddish for Leonard. So the first poem I want to read from my just published third collection is A Walk in the Dark, and it's dedicated to the memory of Ashra Sabbatai, April 1st, 1907, who died in July 27th, 2014. That's how long ago Leonard and I knew each other, have known each other. A Walk in the Dark. Again, this is dedicated to the memory of you, Leonard, and also Roshi. I rub my dirty eyes with my dirty hands in a dream of boxes filled with dirt from the fingernails of Jesus and the feet of the apostles. Empty the boxes into the graves of circus clowns and other fools who clip their toenails once a year at Easter and when the Christ has risen, and butterflies return to Capistrano, riding on the backs of dead swallows pretending to be Air Force drones. And oh, the bones they carry in their beaks and drop on statues of St. John and other whited sepulchres in Central Park. And the north wind drives a purple rain like a restless feeling into the arms of ennui, waiting on the other side of Roshi's bamboo bridge. Next poem I want to read is called Mr. Kurtz, He Dead. Now, that's several things. That's a quotation from Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, but even more, it is the epigraph that T.S. Eliot uses in one of his greatest poems. So I am, in effect, honoring and writing to the memory of T.S. Eliot. Mr. Kurtz, He Dead. A cinder in my eye, and I remember God. The hand across my mouth, the skewer through my feet. A wood chip on my shoulder, and a scapegoat in the bushes. I remember. I remember last December, or was it April? I forget. No matter, I remember, or will, when this forgetting stops. Wheels within wheels, and dancing boxes, bones rising from the kitchen floor again. These bones shall rise again, shall dance again, shall leave a trail of marrow on the floor, shall stumble out the door and down the double helix, down the elevator shaft, down the elevator shaft, the double helix, down the throat of Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, a feast of marrow bones. Yes, now I remember. There were cinders in my eyes, and God between my legs, and spittle on my chin, and you shouting, little pig, let me come in." Much of the things in my poems are lifted from other poems, other poets, and popular culture. I learned that from T.S. Eliot. If you remember, if you know Eliot's work, you'll know that in his greatest poem, he has a series of footnotes where he footnotes all the references that he's making. That has become very standard in modern poetry among modern young poets. They even, at the end of a poem, will give what they call sources. They don't do it as footnotes the way Eliot did. In The Wasteland, it was in The Wasteland that he had this long section on footnotes. They don't do it as footnotes. They just will have a thing that says sources, and then they list the literary sources that they're calling upon. So this next poem is called The Waiting Game, and it begins with an epigraph. It's a long, long while from May to December. Now, That's a quotation from a great song for a long, long time, from May to December, and the years grow short as you reach December, and so forth. Beautiful, haunting song. A dung beetle rolls the sun across the bedroom floor. Scorpions scuttle on little feet across the roof. Yet we have no proof of God other than a wristwatch ticking on the bedside beside a glass of water and a set of dentures soaking in it. And it would make no difference, even if there were. Even if there were, it would make no difference. The same old game, but on a different nightstand. Brother Cain screwing Brother Abel's wife, their sister, in a field of mandrakes. This too will pass. This discomfiture will pass. It will pass from bang to whimper, from gate to gate. So relax. There is no hurry. The scorpions are patient. They can wait. Only the dung beetles scatter and scurry impatiently across the floor, impatiently from gate to gate. Mysterium Conjunctionis. That is a reference to a work by Carl Gustav Jung, another one of my great teachers. And it begins with an epigraph from T.S. Eliot. Let us go then, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky like a patient etherized upon the table. And that's from the Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, lines 1 through 3. Standing in the pantry of a pentacle. Open the pickle jar. Smell the vinegar. Release the prisoners of the dill, the onion. The Holy Spirit, the genie of Jesus, the purple protection, set them free to trip and to stumble through the valley of death, through the graveyard of children, the vineyard of angry grapes, of stinking garlic and curdling milk. There is no end to this beginning, neither is there middle, but only a movement and a pause, and a nest of serpent eggs hatching on a hot rock in the shadow of the moon, writhing under the weight of a pounding sun. Child's Play. Lilith threads her needle from a stack of pins and cushions in the attic of my house. And the merry-go-round goes round, and the Catherine wheel goes round, and the manticore goes round and round and round, a mulberry bush and a prickly pear, and a dizzy dreidel spinning on the ground beneath my feet, just east of Eden, and a thrown stone skipping to my loo, my darling. Small change. And again, there's an epigraph of this from the Hindu Heart Sutra. Gone, gone, gone beyond. Gone completely beyond. And it's in 4 parts. Part 1. Pennies in a cup, garbage in the street, the lion sleeps tonight. Homunculus rising. And dreams of being eaten by the man in green, sliding down a penny whistle. 2. Pennies in a cup, in the hand, on the eyes, buying thoughts of sounds inside the walls of unknown strangers and of wolves blowing down the dream. 3. Gone, 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 completely gone, completely spent, beyond, and the lions sleep tonight like thoughts inside a paper cup, like pennies in a paper cup, for or on your eyes. I'll read one more poem before our break. Requiem for Almost Everyone, and it begins again with an epigraph. Kyrie eleison, Christe eleison, Kyrie eleison, from the Catholic Mass. This too is in 4 parts. It was written on 19 September 2014. Part 1. Little cardboard boxes on the stairs, the bed, the old man sleeping. Bottomless and topless boxes filled with heavy breathing, heavy water, and the sound of tiptoes through the tulips, rotting like a vagrant's teeth beneath your open window. 2. So what are we to make of this? These homing pigeons swooping in an arc outside our window. These sounds of quaking aspen after dark. This taste of last night's supper on our hands. What are we to make of this? When everything is said and done, and we put our dentures in the glass and say our little prayers before our little sleep, what are we to make of this? 3. Once, when I was young, I saw a sign that said, "Life is hard, and then you die." So is that it? Is that what we're to make of it? Is that the great truth buried in the lesser lie? The big bang hiding in the small slash of rotting teeth? And the pile of boxes on the bed? And the pitter-patter of old man's feet stumbling in the dark alley beyond the dark whorehouse, looking for the toilet when they should be back in bed but cannot smell the cardboard boxes? 4. What are we to make of it? We'll stop here for a break. Let me ask if anyone has any questions about the poems or comments. Let me unred dot those of you who are red dotted. And if you have a comment or a question of me about the poem, the poetry, anything I've said, raise your hand right now, and we'll have a short question and answer period. Raise your hand if you have any comment or question. David, go ahead. Well, Moonwalker, I'm assuming you are a friend from Facebook. Am I correct? Good. That's what I just assumed you were. Thank you. How do we know? Do I know you by another name, or? Good to see you. Do we know? Okay. All right. Well, it's good to see you. David, go ahead. And that's fine. David! Just sublime. Thank you, David. Especially moved by the poem for Roshi. I was too at the time. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, David. All right, everyone. I wish I could play music during this break. We'll take a 20-minute break or so, and we'll begin at 1:45.
Well, welcome back, everyone, after that break. Let's get back to our reading of the Kalidas verses. Now, these poems are so appropriate for today. Here is one I wrote on September 2014 called Lost on Bald Mountain, and it's dedicated to Baldy Monk on his 80th birthday. This was dedicated to Leonard Cohen and written for him 2 years ago, well, almost 3 years ago, on the occasion of his 80th birthday, and, by the way, mine. Again, we were both born in 1934. He a few months ahead of me. Lost on Bald Mountain, for Baldy Monk on his 80th birthday. There are many rooms in the mansion on the mountain where my father lives on tree bark and bitter water. Many rooms, but without doors, without keyholes, without keys. Rooms without floors or walls, only sounds, blank sounds, and the smell of eucalyptus trees and someone on their knees worshiping the dead. But where is the ceiling? Where are the walls, the floor? Where is the locked and keyless door? And where is the fire my father lit on the mountaintop that is no more? Dana nobis pacem, Lamb of God, who taketh away the sins of the world, have mercy on us. It's in two parts. Part one. A broken clock is no longer greater than the sum of its parts. Time broken limps along a path of shattered glass to the beat of a crippled drummer, a bitch in heat on a hot tin roof of a house of cards in the center of a fairy circle of psilocybin mushrooms. Part two. This is the mountain where the gods swap wives and fuck their daughters, and the windows are open. This is their final resting place that smells of anointed feet, overheated breath, and the armpits of sweaty things that go bump in the night behind you. Being and nothingness. Nada, nicho, nulla, nichts. Behind the observer, observing the observed. Behind the subject and object, seen and unseen. Behind the triumphal confetti, I assure you, is nothing. I want to point out that that poem, Being and Nothingness, takes its title from Jean-Paul Sartre's great, impenetrable work of existentialism, Being and Nothingness. Hexagram. A city can be moved, but not a well. A well is deeper than a city, the final resting place of dead pigeons, dead wishes, abandoned coins, where a short rope and a leaky bucket hang over the water, polluted by false hopes. Nano Opera, and it's dedicated to Tony Kaye, the film director, with thanks for suggesting the title, which he did. Headless man riding a headless horse to the temple of a headless god. And the planets sing, the black holes sing, the dead moths sing a song of sixpence in an empty pocket of a toothless vagrant sleeping in the gutter, hugging a little dog. How sand is made, and it is in several parts, two parts in fact. Part one, how sand is made. Silent fingers scratch on screeching mirrors above the bathroom sink of the man who isn't here, but there, among the rustling pages of a rusting book, resting on the floor of some purple sea. Two. And the tides come, and the tides go, and stones become sand, and rough becomes smooth, rubbed by the coming and going of gummy bears and paper dolls through the silent fingers of their hungry mother. The Catherine wheel. Someone, anyone, no one, turns and turns, returns and turns with the sound of a tree falling in the forest, and one hand clapping and a headless chicken, and the echo of Nichevo, Hospadi po milui, Hospadi po milui, Hospadi po milui, from the cutthroat of someone, anyone, no one, turning, 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 like a dervish whirling, like a Catherine wheel whirling, like the last dance ending. Der blaue Engel, German, the Blue Angel. And it begins with an epigraph from the great film, The Blue Angel, with Marlene Dietrich. Very old film. She sings this, falling in love again, what am I to do? Never wanted to, I can't help it. The poem. Leaking faucet dripping on the down low sounds like crickets ticking in the plumbing. Or shrieking cicadas rising from the earth like loaves of bread, or Abel's blood screaming, murderer, murderer, in his brother's ear, and Yahweh's dreams. And unborn sons from the side of Cain fuck their sisters in the field while screaming out to God, murderer, murderer. We're all such stuff as dirt is made of, or as dust collecting on a Bible, or as cobwebs in the corners of our eyes. And all our yesterdays, todays, tomorrows, strut their stuff upon the stage of a bombed-out burlesque house in the war-torn brothels of Berlin, where once upon a time a weeping Humpty Dumpty clucked like a chicken, while horny Lola Lola, for a laugh at his expense, cracked an egg on the old professor's head. And the hands of Jesus, and the feet of Jesus, and the eyes of Jesus bled. A chess game. And it begins with an epigraph from T.S. Eliot's A Game of Chess. I think we are in Rat's Alley, where the dead men left their bones. The rocks are sweating blood on the sands of time, past, present, and future. Mutilated pelicans cannot laugh. Mutilated peacocks cannot cry. Time past, present, and future cannot hold a grain of sand or a falling hand. What was over is beginning, like a chalk mark on the coffin, separating thine from mine and I from thou. A good first move, but a bad end game. King and castle tower fall like a house of tarot cards, dealt out by death, by drowning, whose hand suffocates his mouth and rips his tongue out by its roots of heaven. Cat's Cradle. Here in the Valley of Bones, where the scorpion mocks the turtle as the turtle dies and curses the scorpion for its lies, where dead men return and stones return and children's teeth return, here at Elephant's End we play cat's cradle in the dirt, where a little dog laughs to see such sport, and the wayward dish returns. You might notice here, again, the title of this poem is This the Way the World Ends? And it's a reference to Eliot's passage in his poem, This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends, not with a bang but a whimper. And the title of this poem is This the Way the World Ends? I want to point out the tremendous influence T.S. Eliot had on my own poetry. Just tremendous. And I write about that in my second collected poems called Rat's Alley Poems, dedicated to T.S. Eliot. And I write about my encounter with him and my admiration for him. But anyway, that's why you see so many references to Eliot. But there are just as many less obvious references to many other poets. That's the style I have. Is this the way the world ends? I have fallen into a spot of sun on the sidewalk, down the rabbit hole and into Gehenna, where the blind mice dance to the piper in sets of threes. I have gathered birds' nests from under the trees to make a soup of stones and droppings and the saliva of angels aroused by lipstick. There are no pizzerias where I am, no cracked ceilings either, No sounds of television from an open window or the smell of sweaty sofa pillows underfoot. Nothing but a big bang and a little whimper crossing the street hand in hand to the silence of a marching band. It's a very early poem of mine that I've always loved. The Hermit of the Marsh. The hermit of the marsh, squatting in his thatchy hut alone, painted on his face with mud and chanted Om. Sounds among the yarrow stalks, shaking pumpkins, floating bones, drying, drowning bees, awakening stones. We searched for omens in all of these. What do you see, we asked. Nicho, you answered. What do you hear, we asked. Nicho, you said. What? Do you see nothing, hear nothing? I neither hear the pumpkin shaking, nor the bones breaking, nor the bees drowning. But the stones, we say. We hear them singing, singing to the bones. So now we wait again in this uncertain hour, between the dark and the daylight, when the nightshade begins to flower and cicadas sing, Asbadipo milwa, Asbadipo milwa, Asbadipo milwa. A lazy beetle rolls its dung across the sky, while you and I gather moss. And meanwhile, in another time and place, the hermit of the marsh has flown his coop, but left this note. Be still, and know that I am gone back home. Om Shanti, 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 Om. This poem, Conjurations, was originally published so many years ago in the Chaffee Review, a creative arts journal. Most of these poems have been published in literary magazines. Conjurations. I am fat with magic, sleeping on my father's grave, even in this Russian winter. Father, I have taught them magic, made them fat with magic, raised them from the grave with magic, gestures of my hand and the wand between my legs. Father, I have taught them names to say them backwards over corpses of dead horseflies drowned in vinegar. Would they have drowned if it were honey? Would they then taste sweet as raisins? Would the temple veil be rent? I cannot say. I am too fat with magic, and the flesh of bees drowned in honey, and I am sleeping on my father's grave. An offering. The secret is revealed in darkness, not in light, in the closed eye, not the opened. Then, cover me in darkness, Lord of darkness. Take me to your hidden place. Take me to your place of mirrors. Take me to your place of fears. But take me, Lord. Take me, no matter the means, no matter the price, to caverns of fire, to caverns of ice. Take me. I want to mention that in this collection, at least, there is a lot of rhyming, but it's not typical rhyming. It's rhyming as I learned to rhyme from T.S. Eliot. It's occasional and unpredictable, and you could almost miss it at times. But it's there, and it emphasizes the thought and the patterns and the rhythms. This is the 64th hex oracle. It's written based on the I Ching, the Book of Changes, and as many of my poems are. I have been in correspondence with the I Ching since 1972, almost on a daily basis. So it's been very important to me. And a number of my poems are written based on the I Ching. the 64th oracle. The ending comes softly on tiptoe, with 3 copper pennies in its hand, and fire above water, like a little fox crossing the ice. No goal, no destination, only a wet tail, cautiously. The mad old poet. I really wrote this about myself a long time ago. 2 parts. Part 1. Top, bottom, bottom, top, inside out, outside in. Because everything is everywhere in the gulags and the shtetls where the Baal Shem Tov still dances in a cave. 2. My thoughts right now are in a jumble, ma'am, says I. The walls are spinning like an Ouroboros. What day is it? What year is it? What time is it? Who is president this morning? Kindertotenlieder for Gustav Mahler, the great composer who composed a great work called Kindertotenlieder, Songs on the Death of Children. It's for voice and orchestra that he wrote it. This is titled Kindertotenlieder, meaning in English, On the Death of Children. Empty nests hang from branches like bitter fruit, and what remains fills the vacuum of an open mouth crying, woe, woe, and a poisoned well where the children drink, and bread coming up from the ground to grab its brother Cain by the wrist. Dead swans and dying crows litter the lily ponds where once there were toads croaking jub, jub to dirty ears that heard nothing, understood nothing, except a far-off cricket in a bamboo cage and the open mouth of a poisoned well wailing, woe, woe, woe. This is called Sunrise Song, and it begins with an epigraph from a source that I'm sure you'll remember, and if you don't, I'll leave it at that. The epigraph is, sun, 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 here it comes. The closed eye opens, the open fist closes, the lake ice cracks, the dead bird sings. The Malevolent Staircase. Again, it begins with an epigraph from T.S. Eliot, this time from his play, The Cocktail Party, which says, just for a moment, you have the experience of being an object at the mercy of a malevolent staircase. The poem. I, you, they are falling, all of us are falling, as if from a great height into a greater depth. Even now, we fall, you fall, all fall and curse the bottom stair for not being where it promised it would be when you first descended the staircase naked, hand in hand with Monsieur Duchamp. Driving out the evil eye, and it's written with thanks to the Dragon Warrior. I'll tell you now, although it doesn't say it here, the Dragon Warrior is a children's cartoon show that I absolutely love. I love really good cartoon shows. So this is written with thanks to the Dragon Warrior. The smell of burning bamboo on a wet Saturday afternoon. The clattering of crows. A panda hits the ground. Where are we now? Where were we then? Where will we be? Remove your shoes before you enter. Wash your face and feet. Spit twice and pull your eyelid and say, give not the evil eye. Kein Ein, not the evil eye. I love this poem. It's actually a haiku. It was written to be a haiku. The title, however, is almost haiku. I am by no means a haiku poet. I have a great admiration for haiku, and a great admiration, which I didn't used to have, for these modern young folks who are writing beautiful English haiku, really. Almost haiku. Blackbird on a bare branch flies away. Hang on, I'm looking through. The Old Jew of Maxwell Street. I grew up going to Maxwell Street very often with my family. And here is an epigraph from Wikipedia. Maxwell Street is the location of the celebrated, largely Jewish immigrant Maxwell Street pushcart market of the 1940s, and the birthplace of Chicago blues and the Maxwell Street Polish sausage sandwich. I have such wonderful memories of Maxwell Street. It was magical. You have no idea. And it's difficult to convey. But here it is, the Old Jew of Maxwell Street. Cover the mirror with a bed sheet, your mouth with your hand, your eyes with the other. The crack opens, the casket closes. Neither ending nor beginning shows the way through either portal. Meanwhile, the rain falls on sizzling cement and rises back to God knows where with the smell of desiccating city sidewalks and the aftertaste of shtetl ashes. But better here than God knows where. I'm still not fit to choose one corner or the other, one pushcart or the other. I go wherever the black man eats razor blades and light bulbs and strokes the stomach of his Gehila monster, and whatever else brings in the dimes and nickels. Like Maxwell Street, I go, I am going, I am gone. Goodbye. That completes my reading for this morning. It's been a pleasure giving it for you. It's been a pleasure your being here. And let me again ask one final time, does anyone have any comments or questions about how I write poetry, the poetry I write, or whatever? Raise your hand if you do. David, go ahead. Anyone else? Anyone else have a comment or a question about how I write poetry and so forth? Raksha, 6, go ahead. David, beautiful. I love letting the images flow through my head like a trip through dreams. Well, I have to tell you, that's where those images come from. They do not come from me. Really. Thank you, David. I love that comment. Thank you so much. Raksha? Yeah, there you are. Raksha 6. Go ahead. These things I say, they do not come from me, but from the Father dwelling in me. Quite literally. Go ahead, Raksha. Raksha, no comment or question at this point. It's fine. Well, that's what I mean. I'm glad you did. Oh, you're welcome. Oh, that's the kind of comment I'm asking for. I'm glad you loved it. Are you a writer yourself? Are you one of my poet friends on Facebook? You don't have to be. That's fine if you're not. Anyone else? All right. Well, God bless you all. Thank you for another year of listening to my poems. This year especially, this reading especially, since it commemorates the tragic death of our dear friend, Leonard Cohen, who died at 82, and today I'm celebrating my 82nd birthday. It may be too long. Now, let me tell you how Pal Talk is. It may be too long, or you may have used a curse word. It will not print anything with a curse word, even a relatively inoffensive curse word. Try posting it again. Well, I see your comment that says beautiful. Rather, I see your comment that says no comment or question at this point. I just want to say loved your reading. I see that. Thank you. That's the kind of comment I'm asking for. Oh, thank you. Thank you, David. It's been a marvelous birthday so far. It's been a wonderful birthday so far. All right, everyone. God bless you all. And God willing, I'll see you a year from today to give you a reading on my 83rd birthday, God willing.